In a 2009 interview with the New York Times, a 99-year-old Greek man named Stamatis Mouraitis was asked to describe the secret of his life. American oncologists had given him 9 months to live in 1976. He had outlived 3 of them. He looked at the journalist and said in slow, deliberate English, "My old friends started dying. I had nothing to die from." That sentence ended up quoted in books and printed on tea towels in tourist shops on the island of Ikaria. What is harder to recover is what Stamatis ate for breakfast on the first morning he woke up in his cottage in 1977 and realized he had not died. A bowl of pomegranate seeds picked an hour earlier from the tree his father had planted before the Second World War with a teaspoon of cold-pressed olive oil drizzled over the top. The seeds sat in a wooden bowl on a small table that looked out across the Aegean. This is a film about that bowl, about why a Japanese cell biologist named Yoshinori Osumi stood on a stage in Stockholm in December of 2016 and accepted a Nobel Prize for the discovery of a process that bowl had been activating in Stamatis's body every morning for 36 years, and about a 94-year-old woman named Despina Morai-Tu, no relation, who lives 2 villages over and whose pomegranate tree is still bearing fruit this October. The bowl is the story. The science came later. Stamatis was born in 1910 in a village called Evdalos on the northern coast of Ikaria. His father grew vines and olives on a steep hillside. His mother kept a kitchen garden, 6 chickens, and a pomegranate tree her own father had given her on her wedding day. The tree fruited every October, and the bowl on the kitchen table stayed full from October to January. The rest of the year, his mother used the molasses she had pressed from the previous harvest, a thick, dark, tart syrup stirred into yogurt or drizzled over bread. In 1934, Stamatis emigrated to the United States. He worked construction in Boyle Heights, then Long Island. He married, raised 2 daughters, and ate what America in the 40s, 50s, and 60s asked Greek immigrants to eat: beef, white bread, Coca-Cola, margarine, 44 years of that. By 1976, he was 66 and struggling to climb his own stairs. The X-rays showed terminal lung cancer. 9 oncologists confirmed it. 9 months, maybe less. His first thought was not a second opinion. It was the cost of a funeral. Burial in Greece was cheaper, and he wanted to lie next to his parents on the hill in Ikaria. So he booked passage on a ship and went home. He picked a cemetery plot beside his father's grave, and he waited to die. A year passed. The cancer did not kill him. 2 years. 3. He rebuilt the cottage. By year 5, he had planted a vineyard. By year 10, he was walking the rocky paths above the Aegean every morning to check the vines. By year 12, he had stopped waiting to die, not because he had decided to be optimistic, but because his body had stopped giving him a reason to think about it. When Dan Buttner came to interview him in 2009 for the National Geographic article that established Ikarian as the 5th blue zone, Stamatis was 99. He had outlived 3 of the 9 men who signed his death sentence. Asked what a normal day looked like, he thought for a long time. "In the morning, I walk in the vineyard. I eat something my wife prepared from the garden. In the afternoon, I rest. Then I walk again. In the evening, my friends come by and we play dominoes and drink a little wine. Then I sleep. Every day the same." The journalist pressed him. "Is that it?" Stamatis nodded. "That is it." He had not designed a longevity protocol. He had refused to leave the routine of a Greek mountain village, and the routine had refused to let him die. Yoshinori Osumi was 71 when he stood on the stage of the concert hall in Stockholm on the 7th of December 2016. The Nobel Committee had awarded him the prize in physiology or medicine for the discovery of mechanisms for autophagy. He had spent 30 years watching yeast cells eat themselves under a microscope. Autophagy is a Greek word. It means self-eating. Every cell in your body, Osumi explained, contains a microscopic crew whose job is to identify damaged components, broken proteins, leaking organelles, defective machinery, wrap them in a small membrane, deliver them to the cell's recycling center, break them down, and rebuild new functional parts from the salvage. The process runs continuously. When it slows, damage accumulates, and the body runs slower. There is a specialized version of this crew that works only on mitochondria, the engines inside each cell that convert food into usable energy. Mitochondria run hot and take a lot of damage. The metaphagy crew hauls the broken ones to the recycling center and triggers the cell to build replacements, new engines, clean combustion. By the age of 65, the average adult has lost roughly 40% of their mitochondrial capacity. You had 10 engines, you have 6. That is not why you feel tired at 3 in the afternoon. That is the tiredness. That is the belly that stopped responding to the things that worked at 50. The engines that used to burn what you ate are no longer there to burn it. So the fuel goes around the middle. The metaphagy crew can rebuild the engines, but it needs a signal to start. Without it, the crew sits in the garage and the broken mitochondria pile up. The signal is a molecule called urolithin A. It does not come from a pill, it comes from a fruit. Inside each ruby aril of a fresh pomegranate is a polyphenol called punicalagin. Punicalagin does not cross into your bloodstream on its own. It arrives intact in your large intestine, where specific gut bacteria present at conversion strong levels in roughly 40% of adults break it down into urolithin A. That is the signal that tells the metaphagy crew to roll out. The damaged mitochondria are cleared, fresh ones are built. In 2016, the same year Osumi stood in Stockholm, a Swiss group at Amazentis published in Nature Medicine. They gave urolithin A to nematode worms, which lived 45% longer than controls. They gave it to old mice, which showed measurably better muscle function than untreated mice the same age. In 2019, Andro and colleagues published the first human trial in Nature Metabolism. Sedentary older adults given urolithin A showed measurably increased metaphagy gene expression in their skeletal muscle within 6 weeks. Not a theoretical effect, a measurable one. The tree on Stamatis's land had been delivering that signal through punicalagin, through gut bacteria, through urolithin A every morning for 36 years. Now consider what happened when Ikarians stopped eating the bowl because it is the most useful piece of evidence we have. In the 1960s and 70s, tens of thousands of Ikarians left for Athens, where the jobs were. They brought their grandmothers and their recipes. What they did not bring was the tree. In Athens, the pomegranate in the yard became a carton of pomegranate-flavored juice on the supermarket shelf. The fresh fruit became an expensive seasonal souvenir. The juice became the everyday drink. And the juice, as we will see, is not what their mothers had been giving them. Within a generation, the longevity advantage of the Athenian Ikarians collapsed. By the 1990s, second-generation Athenian Ikarians had cardiovascular mortality rates indistinguishable from the rest of urban Greece. Same DNA, same Mediterranean sun, same olive oil in the pantry, different food system. Researchers call this a natural experiment. You do not need a controlled trial because history ran it for you. One population kept the bowl, and the longevity persisted. Another removed it, and the longevity disappeared in a single generation. The gene did not change. The breakfast did. Let me ask you something. Have you ever bought pomegranate juice? Most likely, yes. It has been a wellness product on American shelves for 2 decades. Have you ever bought a fresh pomegranate? Less often. Have you ever eaten the seeds, the actual arils, white pith and crunchy kernel by the half cup on top of breakfast? For most people watching, that answer is no. Hold those 3 answers. Here is why they matter. A 2014 analysis out of UCLA found that commercial pomegranate juice retains less than 15% of the punicalagin content of the whole fruit. 85% of the active molecule went into the trash with the seeds before the juice was bottled. The juice industry needed a long shelf life and a printable health claim, and the processing required removing the very part of the fruit that delivers the signal. The product is real. The molecule that wakes the metaphagy crew is not in the bottle. It is in the seed your grandmother used to crunch. The grandmother in this conversation has a name. Despina Moraitou, no relation to Stamatis, is 94. She lives in Christos Rachis, 2 ridges over from Evdilos. Every morning before breakfast, in any weather, she walks to her hillside garden with a basket and an old iron-handled knife that belonged to her mother. She comes back with wild greens, summer tomatoes, and from October through January, pomegranates from the 2 trees beside the goat shed. She cracks them into a clay bowl on the kitchen windowsill. Whatever she does not eat, she covers with a small ceramic plate. The seeds keep 3 days in the cool Aegean air. In her 94 years, that bowl has never been empty from September through January. The rest of the year, she eats the molasses her daughter-in-law presses from last year's harvest. A tablespoon with a teaspoon of olive oil and a teaspoon of honey over bread in the morning. Despina does not know who Yoshinori Osumi is. She would laugh if you tried to explain that a Swedish committee gave him a medal for discovering what her grandmother had been doing in this kitchen since the late 1800s. She would offer you a bowl of seeds and tell you to sit down. What she is doing biochemically is supplying her gut bacteria with a substrate they convert into urolithin A, which keeps her mitochondria turning over at a rate her body has had since childhood. The signal has not stopped in 94 years. Compare that to the signal in your body, which has likely been intermittent at best: a pomegranate at Christmas, a juice when you remembered, a bag of Ariels in the freezer that has sat unopened for 2 months. The difference between her 94 years and the average American 64-year-old is not the genome. It is the bowl on the sill. Before I tell you exactly what to do this week, one thing. I have built a system that puts all of this into a 90-day protocol called the Blue Zone Body Reset. It covers Sardinia, Okinawa, Ikarian, Nicoya, and Loma Linda week by week. With the shopping list structured, the meal plans worked out, and a printable kitchen tracker. It is a PDF that downloads in 60 seconds and works on any device. If you are watching on a television, the QR code on screen will take you there. On a phone or computer, the link is below. Now back to the bowl. What to buy? 1 fresh pomegranate per week, minimum. Pick the heaviest one in the pile. A ripe pomegranate hides a brick inside it. The skin should feel tight and leathery, dull, never shiny or soft. $2 each. Frozen arrows work equally well when fresh fruit is unavailable. Look for a package whose only ingredient is pomegranate. No syrups, no added sugar. How to open it. Score the skin in 4 vertical lines. Open it underwater in a bowl and the pith floats while the arrows sink. 2 minutes. Keep a pinch of the white pith and press it into the seeds. Most people strain it out, but it is the membrane that gut bacteria work on most efficiently. Most people throw the medicine in the trash. How much? Half a cup of fresh arrows daily. That is the dose from the 2019 Nature Metabolism trial. Enough raw material for the bacteria to produce measurable urolithin A. If you cannot do daily, spread it across the week. A full cup Monday, nothing Tuesday, a cup Wednesday. The bacteria remember when to eat them. With a meal, not on an empty stomach. The conversion happens in the large intestine in the company of other food. Arrows eaten alone pass through too fast. Eat them with breakfast over Greek yogurt with a teaspoon of olive oil alongside walnuts. Walnuts contain ellagic acid, which the same bacteria process through a parallel pathway, so the two together feed a broader range of strains than either alone. Stomatus grew walnuts too. He did not know the word synergy. He knew what tasted good together. 3 mistakes to avoid. First, the juice, 85% of the active molecule is discarded in processing. If you have been buying it as a health product, you've been drinking sweetened water with a real but inactive label. Buy the fruit. Second, spitting out the crunchy kernel inside each arrow. The kernel is where the fiber and the oil live. The crunch is the medicine. Third, buying a urolithin A supplement and skipping the fruit. Capsules sell for $60 a bottle and deliver synthetic urolithin A directly, bypassing the gut and your converting bacteria. Left with nothing to convert, you lose the capacity over time. Use it or lose it applies to the colon the same as to muscle. The supplement gives you a short-term molecule. The bowl gives you a microbiome that keeps producing the molecule on its own for the rest of your life. Stomatus did not have a supplement. Despina does not have a supplement. They had a tree. So concretely, this Saturday at the grocery store, will you buy a pomegranate? The heaviest one in the pile, $2. Drop a yes or a no in the comments. I would rather know than guess. Here is what to expect. Day 3 to 5, a small shift in afternoon energy. One day you notice the 3-hour slump did not arrive. Not because you pushed through it, but because it never came. Week 2, the waistband sits a notch easier. Not fat loss yet, but gut barrier inflammation dropping. The endotoxin leak that drives visceral fat slowing down. Day 30, a visible softening at the waist. The engines are back online, and the fat that was held because they could not burn it is now responding to a body that can. That is the sequence the research points to. Not calorie reduction, engine restoration. Day 90, fasting glucose and C-reactive protein move measurably in the right direction. You will not need the blood work to confirm it. Your genes will know. The walk that used to leave you breathless at the top of the hill will leave you less so. A note on conversion strength, because not everyone responds at the same rate. Roughly 40% of adults are strong converters at baseline. Another 20% are weak converters, not because their bodies are broken, but because their microbiome has been depleted by decades of low-fiber eating, repeated antibiotics, or processed food. If you are in your 60s and have not eaten a high-variety plant diet, there is a reasonable chance you are in the weaker group. That is not permanent. More plants, more fiber, more botanical variety across the week, and the capacity returns. The fix is not a supplement, it is more food of more kinds. To test it, eat the fruit daily for 2 weeks. If you feel the afternoon shift by day 10 or 11, your bacteria are doing the work. If nothing changes, the microbiome needs more variety first. That is not discouragement, it is information. One last thing about Stamatis, because the honest version is more useful than the clean one. He never credited the pomegranate. He never said urolithin A. Asked for his secret, he gave lines about wine, friendship, naps. The fruit on the table was, in his telling, just breakfast, which means it was working at a level he could not perceive. The autophagy crew does not announce itself. The clearing of damaged mitochondria does not feel like anything. You will not know on any given Tuesday that the bowl on your counter did its work that morning. You will know only that some Tuesday 6 months from now, you will have walked up a flight of stairs without noticing, and you will not remember when that became easy again. The science took 30 years to catch up to what Stamatis' mother put on his plate. Despina is not waiting for it. Tonight, before you sleep, do one thing. Put a bowl on your kitchen counter in the spot where you will see it first thing tomorrow. Saturday, put the heaviest pomegranate in the pile into your cart. Sunday morning, crack the seeds into the bowl, drizzle a teaspoon of olive oil, and eat half a cup with whatever you usually have for breakfast. The gut bacteria will get the signal. The bowl is the start. Everything else follows. We are going to Loma Linda next, to a different breakfast doing something biologically related but mechanically distinct. Stamatis Mauritis died in 2013 in his cottage on Ikarian. The tree his father planted before the war is still bearing fruit, and his grandson picks the seeds into a wooden bowl every October, as Stamatis did as his mother did before him. In 2009, asked what his secret was, he sipped his wine, looked across the small table, and said, "My old friend started dying. I had nothing to die from." The bowl on his table is what he had nothing to die from. If this story changes the way you look at the simple fruits in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant your future. The next treasure will be opened soon.